Okay, let's crack on then. Hello everybody and welcome to another launch of the magnificent Spelt Magazine. Look at this thing of beauty. Look at this thing of beauty. Look at all my post-it notes. That's how organised I am. But I have realised I've missed a couple of numbers out when I was writing them down. So I shall be winging it a little bit tonight. But I do have them written down and printed out. Look at that, Steve. You've got yours as well. Isn't it gorgeous?
Oh, it's amazing.
Really chuffed with that. It's just come
My
out lovely.
favourite issue, I think. So
Is
far.
it?
I say that every time, but I genuinely think it's true.
But I do think it's particularly nice this time because it's got the competition winners in as well, which is lovely. We had such a good turnout for the competition with so many entries, and we have lovely Polly with us tonight. She's having a dinner right now, but she judged the competition and had some really lovely things to say about it. We should have one of the competition winners with us, but I can't see him anywhere, so we may or may not be hearing from him tonight. We'll see. Keep an eye on the waiting room. So hello and welcome back if you've been before to another Spelt launch, issue 7. The next issue will mean we've been going for 2 years. Oh no, not the next issue, it'll be the spring issue, won't it? Almost 2 years. And we have seen columnists, 8 columnists. We're our second set of columnists now. We're going on to our 3rd set of columnists soon. And I have to say, like Steve was saying, I think this is genuinely one of the best issues we had. It is so beautiful. It's full of just incredible, diverse range of brilliant quality writing. I'm really proud of it. And of course, this issue, around about this issue, we launched the Spelt writing school, and that is also going really, really well. We've had a fantastic turnout. I was on the Dawn Chorus this morning, our little writing group, our 7 a.m. writing group, and it was just a really nice way to start the day. So thank you so much for everyone who's booked into this launch tonight and paid your little £3 fee, because that sort of goes into helping the magazine as well. And anyone who's bought the magazine or subscribed to the magazine, all of this stuff helps us to grow the magazine and grow the Spelt brand, the school, fund more places, free places for people, you know, all of that stuff. So it is all down to the people that are helping us to forward our plans for Spelt. So thank you very, very much. And of course, the biggest thanks go to all the contributors of this magazine who worked so hard to write their poems and their creative non-fiction and their columns and sent them off and put them into our hands. And that's a real honour as well. Steve, do you want to say anything about this one?
I think you've about covered it there. Yeah, as we said, I always say that it's my favourite issue. And I don't think that's just about us maybe getting a bit better at what we do each time, but I think it genuinely is the strength. That it's becoming harder and harder, I think, every time when we go through the submissions to choose what actually goes into the magazine. I'm becoming more and more aware each issue just how few pages we have to work with. And so thank you to all the contributors again, because it is of such a high standard, and in some ways it feels like cheating. Like in what other world can you produce something like the two of us do, and actually like we get all the thanks, like, oh, well done, Spelt Magazine's brilliant, but the truth is it's not us, is it? It's the contributors. That's what makes it strong. We can make it look very, very pretty, but if the writing in there is not very good, then we're lost from the beginning. So we've always got this slight fear that maybe we'll just get submissions one window where there's just not enough good stuff to put in the magazine, but it never happens. Like the standard just seems to be getting better and better and better, and this one really is that. I also think, I won't keep rambling, I promise, but I do also think that while we don't necessarily focus on the seasons beyond the cover too much, I feel like this one really does reflect a kind of autumnal feel in the poems, and I think that's stronger in this issue than any of the others we've done so far, which I think is really nice. And that might just be that we're poets and we all think a bit with an autumnal brain, but yeah, it's wonderful. So thank you to the contributors.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve, as well, for doing all this work on it. And, you know, every time I make a mistake or mess something up, Steve is there to save me. Okay. We're going to get going, and we have first up on my list. Oh, before we do, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you get knocked out, not physically, if you get knocked offline, you can use the same link to come back in. If we get knocked offline, I will use the same link to come back in. You have a stop video and a mute button in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Use those to mute yourselves and stop your video. I think that's everything I wanted to say. We will be screen sharing as far as we can. And hopefully everything will go perfectly. Spelt launches and Spelt events and Spelt workshops tend to be quite relaxed and fun affairs, so let's get going and have some readings. All right, we've got Finola Scott up first. Finola, are you there?
I am. I am. Thank you for this opportunity to read at this time. Like others probably listening, I'm concerned at the climate emergency. While species are disappearing and our rivers rising, I worry and listen to the news. In Glasgow, it was COP26 last year, and COP27 has got the struggle of the vague promises. So like lots of people, I worry about what there's going to be for our children and grandchildren, and that's kind of what my poem's about. I fret about what I can do. So I recycle, change habits, research and write poems. And thank you for the opportunity to publish this poem. It means a lot. Your house is on fire, your children gone. Knees grubby, sandals, freedom scuffed. They lie deep snuggled in the summer park, the sky stirred by skimming swallows. Above their heads, grasses murmur of children left in woods, poisoned apples. Only stories. Here, all is safe, unalterable. Tiny feet tickle my son's arm, eyes consider freckles. A ladybird emerges fresh from slow warming in her cocoon, flexes her wings, grants freedom to count her button spots. 5, 7, 12, so many, like the buses passing.
Bravo. And everything you just said about the climate change, you've managed to sort of catch this into this poem, and it's just the most beautifully done thing. It's so, you focused it in so well. It's just lovely. It's a really lovely piece of work, and we're so grateful that you've sent it to us and it's in the magazine. Thank you, Finola.
Thank you. That means a lot.
We've got Evie up next, Evie Holder. Evie, speak. Evie, are you there?
Yes, hi.
There she is.
Right,
Evie.
hi. Thank you, Wendy and Steve. Again, it's a complete treat to be in the magazine and able to be at the launch, although unfortunately I'm only able to be here for about 20 minutes tonight. But this poem arises out of a sort of a dialogue with, or it's inspired by a dialogue, an intergenerational conversation really. Somebody of a younger generation, and it's about perspectives on what the poet would like to write and what the expectation is as to what the poet should write. I think we'll all have experienced something like that, among other things anyway. Unspeak. Wave names. The smooth, the moment after 7 waves when water, remember those killings on TV when I was a kid, stays calm enough to launch a cobble or boat by hand, and the only black guy was the one who got shot in the face. A word for the type of spray above waves, the spindrift, like threads of white whisked hair, as if brown people didn't count, were dispensable. And for an inlet where water swirls, pauses, or for sea so still You could write about that. A breath of wind touching it makes a pir, a cat paw print. Or the arfrug, a spent wave, drawing the strand back. I mean, you say you've touched on those things before. And words I knew from childhood. The mist which spoiled a picnic at the coast. Sea, roke. But Mum, why don't you write about the feelings we don't acknowledge in ourselves at the time? See, oh, because one day some kid might read that and suddenly think, shit, I know this, that's me. I remember, see, fret, all those feelings, and I never realised till now, that unspoken pain. Mum, do you see? Should I stay here all night, out of the swing of this sea, the clang of the wild beyond? The lighthouse winks, boys blink, toll, call, while I recall a young brown life, pinned down, out of breath. A shock of power without warning, the king wave which brings peril or luck. What to do with such misty language? How to breast the dredged up surge of it all? Thank you.
Evie, you read that so beautifully.
Thank you.
And I just absolutely love the way that you have used the page there and moved that poem about on the page. And there's threads coming together. It's just stunning. When I first read that poem, when it first came into the inbox, I was just like, yes, that one. Yes, please. Thank you, Evie.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your comments as well, people.
Lydia Harris, we've got up next. Lydia, speak.
Yes, here I am, and thank you for having me, and how lovely to be reading amongst these beautiful poems. The names of the home, and a home is a tiny, tiny island, and I can see a home from my study window, and there's some evidence that there was a monastic, a medieval monastic community of 7 sisters on it. Names of the home. She puts them in writing. Let there be, says the son. Oh, let there be, says sister. Ochre, she writes. Ash, ash. She writes chalk, words on her page. Each word a boat. She writes hull. She writes stern. Her sea is vellum. She writes and it passes from her. Ochre, ash, chalk. This stone, writes the pale. This pale, writes the pebble. She stakes out a space, her word pavilion. Thank you.
It's just beautiful, just absolutely beautiful. This simple, elegant poem, and it just says so much. It's so gorgeous, and you read it so beautifully as well, Lydia. Thank you so much. Oh, Elaine, we've got Elaine next. Elaine, speak. There she is.
Hi.
Hello, Elaine. I'm really pleased to see this poem. I'm really, really pleased to see you in this magazine.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. I can never thank you enough, as you know. This dates back when I went to a friend's funeral, actually, before all this pandemic. It's melancholy. I've been told it's sad, but actually I think it's quite cheerful. These birds were spectacular, and I just felt one with them. Kicking up the leaves. It was time they were gathering, strutting and flapping, a bedraggled darkness, conclave of crows, collecting colour from gathering clouds and light at end of day. In sombre sheen, a violet iridescence bordering on gunmetal grey, and tidy gang, sorry, you've got that wrong, shaggy pants, philanthropists, philosophers, scavenging under moss, gravel flicking, each self-absorbed, flash-feathered, orbs piercing, hopping amongst weathered granite, shiny marble slabs, the heavy beak, silver-whiskered, staccato stabs, a seed and worm search of new-turned earth. One, a formal character in burial black, winged limbs folded across his back, stood sentinel, scaly feet astride the lich gate roof, guardian, head bowed, aloof. Corpse bearers come, the funeral bird, raven, eyes, mind, and memory of the god, lifted his head, puffed out his throat feathers, and the cry went up. A single organism, a rabble rose, lifting, squawking on broken notes, dark curls of calligraphy against the fading light. Black birds of passage will not judge, though sins be crimson, and settle back to earth, marking time, kicking up the leaves. Caw, 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 calling in raucous accord with the passing bell. There are a few changes there. That's an old one. Thank you,
Oh,
Wendy.
sorry, Elaine, I've got the wrong one, I think.
Yeah,
Just
never
absolutely
mind.
stunning. Just absolutely stunning. And I know Elaine's work. I've worked with Elaine a little bit before, and her way of presenting the poem on the page adds something to it. And I think sometimes that using white space in a poem can almost be sort of a bit gimmicky, like unthought out. But Elaine's poems seem to have this dreamlike quality because she uses this white space, and she reads so beautifully as well. So thank you. It was a real honour to have that poem in the magazine, Elaine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy.
Okay, we've got Penny Sharman up next. Penny, speak.
Hello. Hi,
Hello.
Wendy. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you very much for choosing my poem, Steve and Wendy. I've been very lucky to have one in this one and another issue, so thanks a lot. So this one's not about autumn. It's about when I visited Coleridge Cottage. It's a National Trust property in Somerset. I don't know if any of you have been there, but it's quite stunning, and it has an emotional impact. So that's all I probably need to say. Coleridge Cottage, Nether Stowey. It's jammed with tourists who come to read a poet's life, to sit in birdsong, ghosts and tape recordings. The caretakers have cut a path from the renovated house to a replica of the lime tree bower. It's an enclave of long grasses, meadow rye, dog's tail, cock's foot, and bearded couch. It's a bastille of May colour, poppies, cornflowers, foxgloves and tufted vetch. It's full of ragged robin and ladies' bedstraw, full of senseless mayweed. All I see are tall trees and wild flowers, oceans of words and laughter between friends over the antique stone wall. This is the outside, the long narrow way from the house. The pattern of dry stones is one upon another, and rain has left tears in this chaos of nature, overgrown tall spires, a firework field. I seek the movements, feet on the path, fingers on the lime branches. They all lead to a home full of candlelight and quilled pens, where the dip into ink pots took time away from an ordinary life. but it's the beds that make me wonder most. How small and unwelcoming. It's the baby's dress, an unlit hearth that makes it hard to hear the sobbing. That's a timeless pain, isn't it? No matter who it belongs to. I think I'll stay in the garden with the May rainfall and listen to some other mariner. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Penny. That's one of those poems where you get carried along by the narrator. And it's like you are seeing through their eyes. You're like sitting on the shoulder. And it's such a beautifully paced poem, just really nicely done. Really pleased to have it in the magazine. Thank you, Penny. Okay. Up next, we have got Pamela Crow. Pamela, speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi everybody. How lovely to be here. Such a delight. Thank you. And thank you for having the dig in Spelt. I'm over the moon. I feel like it's found a home, really. It's a work that I have a kind of deep affection for, but I have no idea ever when I write anything what's going to hit or resonate. I'm completely clueless. And I'm trying to get a mentor to kind of help, but I don't think that really, it can be so subjective, can't it? So I'm just really happy it's in here. And it's a really short little piece. But I was thinking that I refer to there being a sign in it. And I think kind of each line really is a little signpost to kind of a day that didn't take place and some elements of a day that did. So yeah, I'll read it. It's called The Dig. After Sutton Hoo. The grass moved quicker than the clouds. It was difficult to stand still. A king was buried in a boat. An unexplained tower on the hill. Orford Ness was sold out. O and S were missing from the sign. He bought a telescope at the shop. Later, we watched Rafe Fiennes.
I love it. I love it because of these end stop lines. Like you say, each one is a little moment on its own, isn't it? A little statement, and they're all joined together and it creates something. It creates a story without having a massive amount of backstory. It's just there. And I think lots of people think that short poems don't get into magazines. And I just want to say that if the short poem's good enough to be in a magazine, it will get into a magazine. And this is one of those little brilliantly thought out and brilliantly crafted poems. So I'm really, really pleased to have this in the magazine. Thank you so much, Pamela.
Thank you.
Can I just echo that as well? As you were saying, like, you're not sure what would resonate and things. I think it's exactly that. Like each line feels, and I think it's so rare to see a short poem with, fairly short lines that are end stopped with a full stop. We seem to fear grammar and stops, but I think there's something sort of fascinating about this poem in that each individual line I can imagine appearing in like a book of aphorisms or something, because each one sort of feels like it might be loaded with extra meaning. I mean, that's hard. Usually you sort of get one of those. If there's one of those in any poem, you've got my attention. But the fact that all 8 seem to be stories, like Wendy says, in themselves, poems within themselves, are just full of extra meanings that you could, like, I'd entirely read a novel that started with later we watched Ray Fiennes. Like there's something about the combination of those words. It's partly the natural ear for the rhythm and flow of language, I think, but there's just something so loaded about each one of those lines. I do think it really is something quite special. I think we feel quite lucky to have it in the magazine. So yeah, honestly, it's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Can I add one more thing quickly? I just want to say thank you. One of the reasons I'm so pleased it's in Spelt is because of the beauty. I mean, the magazine is beautiful and the image with it is so special to me. And it is a poem that has these images flashing like films in my head. So thank you so much for the beautiful imagery and the layout on the page.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, 7:41.
Claire Burnett, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Hello, Claire. Yes, can hear you.
Okay, I would also like to thank you for including my poem in your magazine. It is a beautiful magazine, and it is the first place that I have had a poem land that is not just there for being a participant in something that everyone got published in. So I'm very happy. And here we go. Nestling Nuthatch. Walking across the beach at Silverdale, we lamented not bringing water with us on that blistering June afternoon. At the hedge line, we heard you cheeping, attention drawn down to the dusty path, your floundering flightlessness. Your heat-stroked, undeveloped plumage, your open beak and no parents in sight. Recalling failed duckling rescues, we left you. We walked along the elderflower-drenched lane, intoxicated by the headiness of honeysuckle and mock orange, trusting you to nature. 24 hours later, I remember you, helpless but still hopping in the heat, and me not putting you out of your misery. Misery, fear and hope in equal measure, futures branching off under the hedge, withdrawing the impact of human hand.
Just beautiful. Thank you, Claire. One of those poems that is holding human emotion within it and saying something about the interaction with nature. I think it's absolutely lovely. Well done. Fantastic. Okay, where are we? Oh, is it Isella? Isella?
Sorry, yes, it is. Sorry, I was
Is it? Oh, I've got it right first time.
type of a comment to the last reader because it's such a beautiful poem. Yes, Isella, hello.
And now we've got your beautiful poem.
Oh, thank you. It's so lovely, isn't it, to hear everybody reading, because it looks beautiful on the page, and I've really enjoyed sort of getting to know the poems and all of the different writing on the page, but to hear it spoken is wonderful. And just thank you for giving us all a voice, really, because it's so lovely to sort of feel that there is a place for our feelings and thoughts and representations of the rural experience. So thank you to you and to Steve, it's wonderful. So this is a poem, again, a bit like I think it was Pamela was saying, it's so nice to think that your poem has found a home somewhere. This is one that I wrote some years ago. I'm a big fan of allotments and that sort of feeling of community, and I heard about this allotment scheme, and it just had such a resonance for me about this idea that the earth belongs to all of us. So it's called Refugee and Asylum Seeker Allotment Scheme, Manchester 2017. By the banks of the Congo, the soil is yellow and red, light and dry. It spilt through her hands as she knelt to the cassava. At the allotment, where she goes on Tuesdays, the soil is brown and wet. It is still her soil. She listens to the rise and fall of voices from Syria, Liberia, Zimbabwe, plants her sorrows, forgets that home is a room where they wash in the sink because there's blood in the bathroom. She waters leeks, cabbages, potatoes, dreams mango, yam, plantain. When evening comes, they eat together in the shed, plant their feet, sing urgent praises for the blessings of this earth. Thank you.
It's just beautiful and beautifully read as well. Thank you so much. I was struck by this one because it is so different to what we usually receive. I guess we've classed it as prose poetry. Would you class it as prose poetry, Zella?
I would, yes. I think that's probably sort of my style, and sometimes I think that it's lesser for that. But if it's reached people, then I'm happy.
No, I really like it. I really like this style, and I like the way that you have laid it on the page, and I like the thought that's gone into it. It's just lovely. It's a really nice piece of writing, and I think having it as a block like this with this continuous line almost is almost like an allotment. It's like looking down on an allotment. I love it. I really do. Thank you so much.
That's a lovely thought. Thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you.
All right, we have got Rachel Klein up next. Rachel, are you about? Are you there?
I am, yes, I'm here.
Hello, Rachel.
You know how you however many times you look at a poem, you don't see the typo, you don't see the glitch, and it's in the penultimate line. So I only noticed that tonight. Is somebody? Oh,
I've done it.
Yeah. And it just, thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be in Spelt, and I felt just going into the journal today, I felt I was in the forest. There are so many trees, and it just felt like I was in the woods. And I had a lovely muddy walk out at West Hay Nature Reserve yesterday. So yeah, I feel that sensory connection. Shinrin Yoku, forest bathing. Notice the way the base of a trunk meets earth, or how a sapling's music is high and fast. Its water song rushes up xylem, while older trees groan. Reflect on the fact that trees can imbibe 100 gallons of water a day, and leaves absorb filters of green light. Hear the wood pigeon's echo as a bubble bath. Sense your nervous system as it sighs, and your tongue savors the taste of loam. Fill your nostrils with bark scent, and let your mouth be a mossy cave.
Fantastic, even with the typo. I see it now. Now you've said it. I don't know how I missed that myself.
I know, me too, yeah.
Honestly, I thought that was just part of the poem. I think I liked the line as it was lovely as you read it, but I don't think I'd have noticed that as a typo. I think I would have read it, fill your nostrils, fill with bark scent.
Oh yeah, that could
and
work.
So yeah, to give me the excuse to say that I'm not a terrible proofreader or anything, but honestly, I think it works beautifully both ways.
Yeah, it is beautiful, and that last line is just stunning. I love it so much. In fact, the whole poem is just like sinking into the forest. It's just perfect. You've done such a good job on that. Thank you so much for sending it to the magazine. It really added something to the magazine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got Sue Dimmock. Is it Dimmock or Dimmock?
Dimmock, well
Dimmock. I'm right.
Can you see me okay?
I can see you all right.
Good. Okay, excellent. Oh, thank you so much for publishing this poem. I've had a lot of sort of toing and froing with it, and it's quite quirky and quite different from a lot of the stuff I write, but I knew Spelt would be interested in it just from the topic. It was inspired by looking for somewhere to stay on the Norfolk coast, and suddenly realising that virtually all the places we were interested in had former lives, and it made me think about how whole villages have become holiday villages where very few people live. So I had great fun sort of playing around with the different places, as it were. So this is it. Holiday village. Old granary, old tannery, old bakery, old stables, old brewhouse, old schoolhouse, old boathouse, old cowshed, old rectory, old surgery, old joinery, old smithy, old farmhouse, old coal house, old lighthouse, old pig pen. Not sure I'd want to stay somewhere where it was an old pig pen myself, but there you go.
You know what? It's just perfect. It's one of those poems where it is just so simple. It's so simple. It's just a list of names, and yet it tells a story. It's saying something. And this is something that I recognised coming from a little village, that so many of the houses in my own village have been turned into like Airbnb, and they are all old barn, old farmyard, whatever, and this sort of listing of the old rectory and the old surgery and the old joinery. These are businesses that are disappearing from villages.
Yeah.
Is the rural, I don't know, the connective tissue of the villages is disappearing. And I just saw it, and you're absolutely right. I looked at it and thought, that's brilliant. I'm having that. So thank you so much, Sue, for
Thanks,
sending
Wendy.
it in.
Thank you
Brilliant.
very much.
Okay, we have got Ruth next. Ruth Bradshaw, one of our columnists. Ruth, are you there?
I'm here, yes. Hi, Wendy.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. So, yes, thank you very much. It's great to be part of this. I'm really enjoying listening to all the poems. I'm not a poet, so I'm going to be reading my latest piece, my latest column that I've written for Spelt. This is the third one I've written now, and it's called Making Waves and Connections. Making waves and connections. No matter how many times I come here, I find it hard to believe I'm still in London. Minutes after stepping off the train, I can be walking across Farthing Downs towards a view filled with trees and meadows as the red brick houses and tower blocks of central Croydon disappear into the distance behind me. There's a wonderful feeling of light and space on the downs, especially on fine days in spring and early summer when the whole place is alive with birdsong, and there's so much new growth that even the air smells fresher. The meadows are a kaleidoscopic patchwork of wildflowers and butterflies, and above them rises the spiralling song of skylarks, a sound I associate so strongly with the countryside that it took me a while to recognise them here. It seems I'm not the only one transported from suburbia by my visits. When I pass other people, we greet each other cheerily in a very non-London way, as though being in this landscape compels us to nod and smile at strangers. As I leave the downs and enter the woods in Happy Valley, the rattle of skylarks is replaced by the songs of woodland birds and the occasional drumming of woodpeckers. For the past decade or more, I've come to both Happy Valley and Farthing Downs, not just as a visitor, but as a conservation volunteer. Helping to care for these woods and meadows makes my connection to them all the stronger, and connects me too to all those previous generations who've looked after this land. And it's when we start coppicing in the autumn that I feel that connection most strongly. Coppicing involves cutting trees down to nearly ground level to encourage new shoots to grow, which will themselves be coppiced in years to come. It's a practice that's been used for centuries to ensure woodland can keep providing fuel and other products long into the future. The late nature writer Roger Deacon described coppicing as like making waves. You cut down a wave of vegetation, then another comes a few years later, wave upon wave, making a wood's history. The waves of coppicing have washed over many changes in Happy Valley over the years. No one relies on the few bean poles we produce here anymore, but many species have evolved to take advantage of the habitats created by coppicing, and those species can suffer when woodland is left unmanaged. Now the main reason we coppice these woods is for the benefit of wildlife, particularly the rare hazel dormouse which breeds here. I've never been lucky enough to spot any dormice, but I have had the joy of seeing and breathing in the heady scent of a springtime sea of bluebells in an area we coppiced a few months previously. I'm always tired but content when I walk back to the station after a day's volunteering. From this direction, the streets of suburban housing on surrounding hills are far more visible. A hint of what would have happened to Farthing Downs and Happy Valley if these areas had also been built on when London expanded in the 20th century. Seeing this view has always made me think of just how grateful I should be to the campaigners in previous generations who fought hard for the environmental and planning legislation which helped protect places like this from development. Now that we have a government seemingly intent on ripping up so many vital protections for nature, I think too of the risks that legislation faces and of how it is more important than ever to keep campaigning for the protections which will ensure that skylarks, dormice, humans and other species are able to thrive here and elsewhere in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruth. Ruth, do you know what? You are consistently high quality with your columns. And one of the reasons that we have columnists because they're essentially creative non-fiction, but we like to have a thread of a theme running through the columns. So when we interview people for the columnist positions, we like to have them with an idea of where they're going with their columns and to bring a theme and an interesting outlook. And Ruth's columns are always interesting. I love how she brings in the history and the human nature, as well as this strange position of being near London and being a conservationist in that area. And to be honest, I mean, I see conservationists going about their business where I am, but I never really know what they're doing. So it's really nice to have this little window on what's actually happening as well. And Ruth writes so beautifully. It's just elegant writing, just a good mix of that creativity and the factual content. It's really nicely done. So thank you so much, Ruth, for writing for us in the first place, but also coming and reading for us tonight. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying writing the pieces. Thank you.
Okay, we are on Michael Eads. Oh, no, we're not. We're on Sarah Doyle. Sarah, are you there?
I am indeed. Thank you, Wendy. Many thanks to Wendy and Steve for publishing my poem and for arranging this wonderful evening. It's been fantastic to listen to all of these beautiful poems, and I really enjoyed listening to Ruth's piece of creative non-fiction as well. My poem also is situated within the sphere of urban nature writing. I'm really lucky in that I live in North London, where I have a canal right by the end of my garden, and I moved here in 1995, and it took 26.5 years of canal watching until I finally saw this particular creature. On seeing a kingfisher, New River Canal, Enfield. As if a piece of sky had sheared away at its brightest point, gaining the gift of airlift on the wing. As if clouds had permitted the raining of gems set in a shock of metal. You electrified the city's winter fog, branding my vision the way lightning might, alchemical glint of precious, of prayer, the blessing of air, a benediction, your smooth flight, the impossible dazzle of fever dreams, feathers made of water and mirrors, blue fire and light. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a gorgeous poem. Steve, did you want to say something about this one?
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to keep derailing things, but I think we're doing good for time. As I'm about to say something, you know, critical and complimentary about your poem, I demonstrate my own wonderful use of language. But yeah, I think this is genuinely an incredible poem. And it almost feels like it shouldn't work in a way. Like if I'm teaching students, it's some of the things that are being done, I'd be wary of like letting them loose like this. But the way you handle the language, I can't quite work out how you've done it, because it's jointly so poetic. And often we say that even as poets, is like almost as an insult, like it's too much. And yet at the same time, there's nothing that's over the top about anything within here. It's such a delicate balance. And I think so often, I think the American poet Edward Hirsch sort of calls it a kind of a neo-romanticism is what he's looking for, because he feels like so much contemporary poetry has got very cold in a way. And I think this sort of fits in with that as well, the sort of almost neo-romantic, because there's nothing in there that feels archaic or shouldn't be in there. And even the A Precious, a Prayer, a Benediction, all of it fits, all of it's earned, because, and even more so now that you've told us that it was what, 25 years of waiting before you saw this creature. But that, the opening line, you absolutely had me. And then I expected that opening line, as I often do. If I feel like I've got a killer opening line and a good title, that poem will be fine. It's all downhill from there, but that poem will be fine. And I sort of expected, it might go downhill from this opening line, but that will still be fine, because there's still going to be a wonderful poem sort of supported at the top, like held up like a puppet. But it doesn't. It just keeps sort of, I wouldn't say getting better and better, but it sort of waves, ebbs and flows in a really gorgeous way. Like honestly, Sarah, I think it genuinely is something of a tour de force. So thank you again for letting us have it, particularly in my little urban rural section.
Wow, that means the absolute world. Thank you so much for such generous comments. I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's lovely, that first line. Oof, gorgeous. All right, Steve, who have we got next? Because I've written stuff down wrong, I think. Now we've got Michael Leeds. Michael, are you there? Speak.
I am here. Yeah.
Hello,
Hi,
Michael.
everyone. Hello. Yeah, thanks very much for publishing this and for giving me the opportunity to read it out. It does mean a lot. I think sometimes I kind of think that my writing is a bit of a strange mixture, really, of different things, different bits and pieces. So yeah, it's just really nice to kind of find a home for this. And this is another urban nature piece, actually from London again. I was going to just read an extract from this. It is quite long, but I can see that the full version is on the screen. So
We've probably got time for the full version, Michael. If you
yeah,
want to go for it.
okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll I'll plow through. Yeah. Okay, so this is a piece called The Wood. Around dusk, the wood is a lonely place. The copse of trees is not large, but it is old and the trees are tall. The path that runs through it is a cracked and twisty piece of municipal tarmac. The cracks in this pathway get wider in the summer, leering in the heat. In the winter, they snap shut. At twilight, the wood is both empty and full. Unseen in the shadows are dog walkers, crows, green parakeets, unknown animals rustling in the undergrowth. Teenagers gather there to smoke skunk and drink beneath the boughs. On the pathway, walking, it can be surprisingly quiet as you move through the tunnel of trees. We are in Bigham Wood, South London, a small clump of forest clinging to an unglamorous hillside between Streatham Common and Croydon, a local authority woodland out on the city's margins. Out here on the edges of the city, space stretches out. Roads widen, gardens grow in scale, patches of untouched or abandoned land spring up. There are anomalies everywhere, strange verges and roundabouts, uncanny ponds, odd railway cuttings and burial grounds. It's easy to get lost here. It's easy to wander unexpectedly into a fragment of something much older, much wilder. The folklorist Steve Round describes the once extensive Great North Wood that once covered the area. Until the mid-19th century, he writes, when rapid development transformed it, the area contained not only extensive woods, but also acres of open wasteland, and had a reputation of danger and mystery. Bigham Wood, our little woodland, is a relic of this. It is a preserved fragment of a much larger run of trees that once stretched from the docks at Deptford down to the monasteries and manors of Croydon. The Great North Wood was where you went to encounter the unexpected. It's where you would go to have your palm read and your future foretold, or where you would go to hide from justice. A brother's grim territory, in other words, a dark forest haunted by witches, gypsies, ghosts. C.J. Schuler, in his History of the Wood, writes that Margaret Finch, widely famed as the Gypsy Queen, settled there and received many visitors. When she died in 1740 at the age of 109, it was found that because she'd spent so long sitting cross-legged with her chin on her knees, her limbs could not be straightened. They buried the Gypsy Queen just as she was, stuck in that position, crouched and twisted, sitting cross-legged, meditating in a specially made coffin. The wood started to disappear in the 19th century, eaten up by expanding London suburbs. Trees were cut down, houses built. New streets and villas took the place of woodland groves and thickets. Over time, names and association changed too. Northwood blurred and slurred into Norwood, a haunted part of the city. Arthur Conan Doyle used to live in Norwood, and Holmes and Watson take a trip there in The Sign of 4 from 1890. Rattling through new London suburbs, Watson looks out of their carriage window and shudders. We had indeed reached a questionable and forbidding neighbourhood. This is Watson. Long lines of dull brick houses were only relieved by the coarse glare of tawdry public houses at the corner. Then came rows of 2-storey villas, each with a fronting of miniature garden, and then again interminable lines of new staring brick buildings, the monster tentacles which the giant city was throwing out into the country. South London, the suburbs, new houses and streets snaking into the countryside cursing, shuddering and pushing back. Not all the trees were cut down though. Patches still remain. Fragments of a once vast woodland cling like a membrane to the hills and valleys of the city, places with weird light, deep shadows, long memories. Biggin Wood, our little woodland, is one of these fragments. A left behind patch, a ghost forest, a portal back. Near here in 1950, a woman digging her garden uncovered a hoard of gold and silver coins, 14 gold and 124 silver. The trove was buried in 1364 and lay undisturbed for centuries before being grubbed up by the green fingers of a suburban gardener. They now lie in that most greedy of London treasure houses, the British Museum. Fragments of woodland, fragments of memory, splashes of light and shadow coming down through the trees. Biggin Wood holds its secrets close. If you're not careful, it will hold you close too. Without due caution on a summer's evening, it will snare you. Google Maps will take you straight through, luring you along a narrow pathway surrounded by ancient trees. Before you know it, you are alone. You're caught in a rustling tunnel full of the sounds of the wind blowing through old boughs and people doing secret things in forest clearings. Around dusk, the wood is a lonely place. Halfway through, almost safely across, you will hear a twig snap behind you. You will stop, turn, and look down a tunnel of trees with the light draining away from them. There are rustles and crackles from the undergrowth, shimmers of light and shadow, snatches of music, and muffled laughter. You spin around. There's nothing there. Or is there? Looking back in the falling lights, it's almost possible to glimpse a figure through the dappled screen of branches. There are movements there, a green form pushing through the undergrowth. A face is there, surely. 2 eyes like shining holly berries winking at you from the shadows. You glimpse something resembling all at once a fox's muzzle, a badger's snout, the flat white face of an owl. Never still, seen in glances, vibrating half illuminated in the trees, a dark outline framed in twigs. The crows take flight. The wind stops rustling the leaves. The dog walkers and the teenagers and the wafts of cannabis disappear. A perfect stillness comes down and settles over everything. Silence intervenes. Then, more disturbing than the scream, you will hear it. The sound of an empty wood, breathing.
That is just absolutely stunning writing. I tell you what, if you had a book with this sort of thing in, I would buy it. I would eat that up. I loved it. I loved this going into the forest and sinking further and further into the history, and that feeling of something strange about, there is something strange about trees and about forests and about being a person within that atmosphere. And I do think that trees are sort of sentient beings that know that you're there and communicate to each other that you're there. Just wonderful. The history in it is just brilliant and beautifully read as well. Thank you, Michael. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, we are on to Andrew F. Giles. Andrew, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello, Andrew. Andrew is one of our columnists.
Hiya.
Take it away.
Just want to double check my connection's all right, because I didn't have a very good connection today. Can you hear and see me all right?
Yeah, I can hear and see you fine.
Okay, cool. Thanks. It's lovely to be here amongst this network of writers and lovers of the land. So thank you, Wendy. Love your hair, by the way. It's looking really good. Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate your kindness. So this is the third article in my series called A Queer History of Outsiders. This is called Network Connection. Perhaps, as I have been describing this network of queer folk, allies, flora and fauna, real and imagined and across time and culture, it may seem as if this network is a busy, even sociable place of connections. When I use the word network, I mean it both as an aspirational reaching out in geographical isolation and to rethink previous ways of connecting that had not served me. Patriarchal and heteronormative ways mostly, although these words do not always do enough in current society, or maybe they do too much. How do we approach human connection in climate emergency? Are indignation and cancellation the only textures in what's going on? Is a purely human connection really the baseline for our planet's future? Active silence and listening, as well as doing rather than saying, and non-human connections are other textures that might swim in and out of the network. A week before the autumn equinox, I slaughtered my first hen, she who had begun to break her own eggs, the cannibal hen. My neighbor came down to take me through it. It was quick, painless, and much easier than I thought. I closed the hen's eyes for her as she died. My neighbor looked at me funny. I shoved her insides far over the fence for the foxes, the hen, not the neighbor, although the neighbor and I have had our moments. I made a tiny omelette from the eggs left inside the hen and stored her naked and headless in the fridge for a week. On the day of the equinox, I boiled her for hours with some bay leaves from the garden. The smell of delicious stock filled my little mountain house. As the sun went down, I called the dogs and cats to the kitchen, and we each ate a warm piece of hen, and I, at least, chanted my gratitude to the autumn evening. The kittens mewed for more. The dogs sat expectantly with their heads cocked. It was satisfying to go through this process, and it created all sorts of little nodes in the network. It was a way to commune with my neighbor, my only neighbor who lives here all year round, like me, although we often go for months without speaking. There is no human friendship, but there is an exchange of ideas and skills in the business of living off the land. There was ritual with the non-humans who lived with me as we took into our bodies one who had grazed and fertilized our garden, the silent connection of life's cycle. The magic of this example has little to do with whether I feel good as a queer cisgender man in the mountains. Sometimes I do or do not. There is a way to connect, I suppose, that is not about considering your voice, which is not to say that there are not a billion voices that should be heard and are not. There is the silence of the morning before the animals wake up and the moving trees are silhouetted, pointing and conversing against the dawn sky. There is the tree friend that, after years of standing sentinel in the orchard, traced and hugged on my way back to the bamboo harvesting, is marked forever decreasing processing until it ends up stacked in the log pile in the barn. There is my queer ancestor in the karst caves a few hundred meters up, painting bison and wolf onto the crystalline walls. The kittens jump and hide sometimes, as his song about the end of the world filters down from the peaks.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Just wonderful, really, really interesting, thought-provoking writing. There's this thing that happens with Andrew's columns, and again, we like the columnist because there's a continuous thread, an investigation of a certain theme, and I think Andrew is consistently not only high quality writing and beautiful writing as well, but unapologetic writing and interesting writing, that he's digging into this theme, he's examining it and turning it round, and it's really, really enjoyable to read, and also just really enjoyable to hear him read because he's such a good reader. Lovely, lovely stuff. Thank you so much. Okay, we've got Ojo Tay next. I'm not sure whether I pronounced that right, Ojo. I'm so sorry if I haven't. But before we do have Ojo, I've got Polly Atkin. Polly, are you there?
I am. Hang on, let me turn on my video. There we go. Way, I'm here.
And I thought it might be nice, and this might be a nice moment for you to say a little bit about the competition, because we only have, unfortunately, the other competition winners couldn't be here tonight. So we've only got Ojo here. Ojo. And but anyway, Polly, over to you. I'll stop rambling now.
I just wanted to say how amazing all of the competition entries were, really. So it was a terrible burden, although a beautiful burden as well, to have to take these 700 poems and find only a handful out of them. Getting down to 130, I think, was my first shortlist. Was quite painful, because I knew I was setting so many excellent poems aside, and all of them, I think, could fill issues of the magazine, could fill issues of loads of magazines as well. I had to get stricter and stricter and stricter as I went on about what the poems were doing and the kind of effect that they were having on me as a reader as I read them. And I think it just shows exactly what you've been saying about the magazine, all of you, that there is so much excellent work in this area, in nature writing, in place writing, in rural writing, in thinking about urban nature, in thinking about all the different kind of landscapes that are represented there as well. I was really interested in shared themes that came out, because always when you're reading for a competition, you're seeing all these different kind of threads that come through when you're reading that many poems together, especially when it gets over a couple of hundred, you start to see real themes. And there were lots of poems about trees, which I thought was really interesting. Lots of poems about lost places, a lot of the things that we've seen in this issue, and about lost land, reclaimed land, about the histories associated with that, whether they're kind of personal or whether they're to do with a place or a culture more widely. But the actual winning poems, the three of them, all of them, when I first read them, I knew that they had to be placed within the winners. All three of them were just like a kind of smack to the head in the best possible way, in the kind of Emily Dickinson sense of, it's a poem when it blows the top of your head off. All of these ones just were amazing. And this poem particularly, I just thought there was such a control of language and of vision and of image and of the line itself as well, that there were so many lines in this that I kind of underlined and put exclamation marks by, saying this is so amazing. So I can't wait to hear it read out loud. And to everyone who didn't make that list, it's really not a reflection on the quality of your poems, because there were just an extraordinary number of really brilliant poems sent in, which is depressing to hear in some ways when you're one of those people. But send them out, keep sending them out, because someone will want those poems. They were so good. Don't go, oh, I didn't win the competition, and then put it at the back of a drawer, metaphorical or virtual, and not send it out again. Send it straight back out again, because someone somewhere in the world needs that poem. So keep going, keep submitting, send it out. That's all I'll say.
Thank you so much, Polly. And Polly, thank you for wading through like 700 poems, because that was a lot. That was more than I thought we were going to get. And thank you for your lovely words. Okay, Ojo, are you there? Can you speak? I literally just saw you a second ago. There he is. Hi. Do you want to unmute yourself? Hello.
Hello, how you doing, Wendy?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? Am I pronouncing your name right?
No, you're not. My name is Tai. My name is Tai. Ojo is my surname.
What?
Did you get that? I said my name is Tai.
Tai.
Ojo? Tai. I'm Tai.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It doesn't matter. I think I feel definitely people don't, maybe because you don't stay in this part of the divide, so it's not a problem. So, but my surname is Ojo, so my name is Tai.
Tai. Tai, it is so lovely to have you here tonight. Thank you so much for coming along.
Me too.
And I cannot wait to hear your poem.
Once again, I want to thank Polly for, I didn't expect definitely I was going to be picked or sort of more like placed among the winners, but I'm glad and the opportunity being given to me to share this poem. And I want to say that initially this poem was sort of more like 2 or 3 lines. I think I wrote this poem, I started this poem, that should be last year. I couldn't complete it. I think I later completed this year. And I wanted to sort of more like just run it and see how the response from different magazines, see how maybe definitely it strikes a chord when it's been read by a different person entirely from me. So I'm really glad that it's been shortlisted for the competition. The title of the poem is Strange Fruit, after Maitsiaga waterfall in Kaduna. Kaduna is one of the states in the northern part of Nigeria. In the 10th year of her exile, my mother recounts a sojourn into the beautiful north. The stereo southerly strum where it all began, and the paw of the engine as it runs northwards through the small, quiet hinterlands. My eyes alive as she flips through the photographs of the past, rushing back to that trunk, that ribcage empty of desire, that miracle of childbirth, that sweet voice of exploration, calling her into the beautiful vigor of life. Everyone laughs each time she pronounces the word Matsiaga. What will happen if she lied about the rainbow-like mist which appears only to disappear mysteriously? Only those to whom transfiguration seems alien would flatten the north to terror. Like the waves, my mother repeats a dialogue again and again. I'm sorry, these things are tiny, but again and again, knocking on the heart of every believer. I do not understand purpose, but all I hear are these words pouring out from the mouth of a weaver bird, a woman with one long desire to be happy. Whatever kept her bridled did not stop her from crossing the streets in the rain. Whatever held her broke the moment she steps her foot gently into the back of the pickup truck. The journey wells into a well of joy, there in the pool of adventure, our ear filled up with fever dreams, a combination of inherited tales, date palms, and playful young yarinyas, adorned with henna. My mother had love. It must be love because it makes no sense to imagine the dignity bundled in the interior of our observable feelings for moments. There has to be a way to hear the melody of the kakaki, which are entirely token letters, with an accompaniment of kalango deep inside her. What is Babun Shirana? Carrots and cucumber meets her needs for closeness. Everyone forgets their first crush, not my mother, though she's old enough to know better. Birth. What is worth loving is what loving badly. Like being there by that summer cliff on the other side of the waterfall. While she rests us now on the clavicles of the 4 different hollows of the Kagaru Hills. That docile waterfall that flows down through history like a torrent. What would I say is just length? There has to be a way to think continually of those who refuse to be wishes slaves. North is home. North is home. There is laughter in Kano. And in that moment, a door swings widely for visitors. Thank you.
Absolutely stunning, just absolutely stunning. Really, really beautiful. It is just full of electricity. It's just brilliant. Thank you so much, Tay, for bringing that and submitting it and sending it to the competition and coming along tonight to read. It's just so different to hear you read it. It lifts off the page. It's just gorgeous. Really, really good.
Can I rant again about it for a second?
Sure.
So there's so many lines in there, Taye, which I just think are so beautiful, and just there'll just be like one word which just pulls it from being a really good line to just being a really amazing line. And it's just so fantastic to hear, and the whole movement through the poem. I loved you saying it kind of began as 3 lines, because I think everything, the way it folds and folds and folds through these moments and these remembrances is just brilliant. Thank you so much for sending it in, letting us all enjoy it, and for reading it, because it was such a treat.
Yeah, it really was.
Thank
you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, can I just also affirm that as well, Tay? That's wonderful, really wonderful reading as well. But as I was saying earlier, possibly due to absolute laziness, if I've got a good title and 1 killer line, I feel like that poem will be fine. I think there's a whole collection's worth of killer lines in here. The fact that you've managed to pack them into 1 poem is, well, it's just greedy for us, really, because we get to have them all in 1 poem on that page. So thank you very much for letting us have it. But yeah, I've read some of your other work as well since we had you in the magazine, and yeah, it's great stuff. I urge everyone to check out Tay's work, because yeah, it really is superb. So yeah, thanks for submitting to our humble little competition. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, people, we're going to have a really short break, because now we're running a little bit over because of Wendy time. So we're going to have a 5-minute break. We'll be back here at 20 past, ready for, first of all, James McDermott, who was here a minute ago. I think he's gone again. And then the fantastic and incredibly talented Polly Atkin. What a treat. Okay, see you in 5 minutes.
Wow, what an evening.